All right, so we're going to switch gears right now, talking Gator football with Dave Waters from Gators Breakdown. I want to talk about the Miami game. So we open as a 2.5-point dog to the Canes. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it does. I think the teams are pretty evenly matched. Now, I know a lot of the polls have come out, and Miami's a ranked team. You know, their record's not much better than Florida's over the last couple of years in a lot weaker conference. And yeah, they're getting a whole lot of love. Transfer portal, I understand. They made massive waves there. I completely get why you think they'd be a better team. But that much better, that's where it gets me a bit. I do think Miami will be a better team. But it's just, why that much better compared to a Florida? You know, throw schedules out of it. You know, preseason ranking shouldn't have the schedule really factored in. It should just be, where do you think teams are coming into the season? And maybe they think that way about Miami, or certainly they think that way about Miami. So, you know, Vegas, you know, goes by, you know, what they think the public will, how the public will spend their money. And I think with all the talk about Miami, you can certainly see why the public would probably favor Miami a bit, and that's why Vegas goes that way. So, but I am a bit surprised. I just think as evenly as matched as I think the teams are, you know, maybe a pick 'em, still maybe Florida favor because they're at home. I still am a bit surprised. But Allie, what surprises me a good bit is you see, and I forget who said it, but I've seen it a good bit. I know Josh Pate was one of them, and maybe it was Greg McElroy or Pickett or one of those guys. But two of those guys are saying Miami's going one loss. Yeah. And I don't ever remember seeing a team where the last two records have been what they've been, and a team outside the top 10 being picked so much to go through a season with only one loss. It doesn't weigh the right way to me. So maybe they do it. Maybe that's what happens. But I am a bit surprised at all the Miami love. As I said, the Canes fans may jump on us here, but they'll be a better team. And maybe because they're in the ACC, but maybe they take that kind of jump.
Well, you know, Canes fans love us over here on this. Sure, once this comes out, they'll love us even more. Cam Ward, game one as a Cane in the Swamp.
That and, you know, something I'll talk about when we preview the game, you know, going up to that game week. But the in-helmet communication, that is something brand new to college football. And their first game in trying to figure all that out is going to be in 90,000 streaming Orange and Blue fans. I'm sure they'll practice it. I'm sure they'll do all the crowd control leading up for the next couple of weeks before that game. But it's going to be different. It's going to be different when you're in that swamp and, you know, trying to figure that out. But, yeah, I mean, he's never seen an environment like that. I know there's some good environments in the Pac-12. Don't get me wrong. I know there's a couple of them, not as many as there are in the SEC. You know, Oregon's got a great environment. Washington's got a great environment. It's still different there in the swamp. So, yeah, and like I said, it's all the new pieces around him as well. They're trying to figure so much out in that first game and then got to get over the coaching hump of Mario Cristobal as well. So, yeah, I think, yeah, there's a lot to figure out. Cam Ward's very talented. You know, could have went to the NFL, had his chance to go to the NFL, but you know, with a lot of new pieces there, you can see why, you know, that this really, to me, you know, should be a game where Miami comes in and has a lot to figure out on the offensive side of football.
You know, I think the Cam Ward we see in Gainesville week 1 is going to look very different than the Cam Ward we see, like, let's say, week 8. We spoke about UF's offensive line, but how much does Miami's front seven worry you because of the offensive line concerns?
Certainly with the pass blocking being the main concern there, I think Ruben Bain on the other side, you know, that's the name we'll circle for the Miami side there. I'm sure they're licking their chops when they hear about, you know, the offensive line concerns that may be out there for Florida's offensive line. So for me, you know, a couple weeks out from that game, I know Florida, you know, Montreal Johnson went down and kind of maybe 50-50 for that game. I think, you know, leaning towards he may not play that game. But, you know, to me, if I'm Florida, I love the weapons at wide receiver. I love Graham Mertz coming back in his second year. But given the opponent and given they can take advantage of a Florida offensive line, run right at them. I still like Florida's run blocking ability. I still like Florida's running backs. Not to say abandon the passing game, but I do think maybe for this particular opponent, try and run right out the pressure. Run right at them. Slow that defensive line a little bit, and then try to hit your big plays down the field when you got that run game going, and really just punch them in the mouth. So I think for me, I'm sure the staff knows much better than I will about a game plan to put together to go against Miami. But I just think, if those offensive line concerns are still going to be valid versus that Miami opponent, then certainly try to get the ground game going and just run right at them. But I think that's a way to slow them down a little bit.
UF has a big advantage in the secondary. Miami's DBs aren't great. Yep. And, so if the offensive line is a concern, I understand why you would say get that ground game going. But is this a mismatch that maybe Florida should be taking advantage of? Are we going to actually potentially see the Gators air it out?
You certainly can. Like I said, I love Graham Mertz's second year, and I like the wide receiver options. I mean, Trey Wilson, Badger, they love Marcus Burke is really coming along. I mean, he's probably the name I hear the most of. Hey, this guy's really turning it on at the wide receiver spot this year. And then Chimere Dike, that reliability. I mean, there's a healthy relationship between Graham Mertz and Chimere Dike. You ask around, those guys are tied at the hip. And of course, it goes back to their days at Wisconsin. And we've heard them both speak to the media lately about their relationship. And it's a very healthy relationship there and a lot of trust. And then, Khalil Jackson, the staff just absolutely loves. So I think Florida is just, I questioned that group. Not much of us a concern coming out of spring camp. You could see the weapons, but I still think they needed to add that piece. And once they added Elijah Badger, I felt much better about this group because I think it really raised the competition and it really raised the playmaking ability by bringing him in. So I do think Florida, they can go 6-7 deep at the wide receiver position, I think, and feel pretty comfortable about what they have there. And as you mentioned, the weaker part of that Miami defense is that secondary. So if they can give Graham Mertz enough time to throw, I can see those Florida wide receivers taking advantage.
About 2 weeks from the game. Do you have an early pick?
I'm still score-wise, no. I'm maybe it's orange and blue glasses. I'm still leaning Florida. I still, Allie. 2 years ago, Florida opens the season again with Utah, gets that big early season home win. Now momentum stalled after that. We all know that. Yeah. Last year's first big home game was against Tennessee. Florida comes out and finds a way to win that game. So Billy Napier's kind of good for that big home early season win. Yeah. And then maybe hopefully this year it would mean if he gets that win, hopefully it would mean more momentum than he's been able to build in years 1 and year 2. But that first big home game in his first couple of seasons, he's been able to come out on top. I see it continuing again.
How vital is this game for UF? I mean, obviously there is time to rebound if you were to drop it. But it kind of feels like as close to a must-win as you could have. It's hard to picture you come out and lose this one, how you pick up enough wins as the season goes on.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we know how tough the schedule is. So if you lose this one, like I said, I think Miami's going to be a good team. I think they'll be a ranked team all throughout the season. Well, there's a lot of those teams on the schedule. So you'll get in trouble looking at a college football schedule this way, but sometimes you can say, oh, well, if you can't beat Miami, who can you beat? Yeah. And I think that's going to be the voice of a lot of people there. And, Allie, the bad thing about it is if you lose that game, people are going to stew on it for 2 weeks. Nobody cares about Samford the next week. You got to wait till you get to Texas A&M 2 weeks later and maybe try and rally the troops and try and get some good feeling back in the program. I mean, this team hasn't won a game since mid-October last year. And if you go game 1 and lose another, and then have to go 2 weeks again before you face another name opponent to try and get a victory there, the noise is just going to get loud, and it's going to stay loud for a couple weeks till that game against A&M.